In this video, we're going to be answering the question, is the Moto G Stylus 5G worth it? Stay tuned. Alright everybody, so starting off with the price tag, the Moto G Stylus 5G 2024 edition retails for a confident $399, and for this we receive a Galaxy S24 Ultra alternative that is almost a third of its $1,100 starting price tag. And in a world where there aren't many options for a stylus device under $1,200, that is if you don't want an older one with an outdated processor and specs, Motorola has solved a crucial problem for this minority of people who still want that stylus in their phone. Getting into the build of this device, this has to be one of the most refreshing redesigns of a phone I've ever seen. On the back we have an unusual dual camera setup, something we don't see much of anymore in 2024. However, it offers a uniqueness and individualist approach that borrows from past Motorola devices, with its melted in module to the back of the phone utilizing a brand new faux or vegan leather, as its nickname states, giving a softer and more elegant look and feel, leaving out those fingerprints a glossy back usually brings. This device also comes in two colors, Scarlet Wave and Caramel Latte, or Caramel Latte, however you want to say it. The Caramel Latte is the one in my possession at the moment, and I know the Scarlet Wave looks dope, but the Caramel Latte has really grown on me. Honestly didn't think it would look this sexy, and some people don't like it, but hey, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. As for the rest of this phone, we have a silver chassis, I believe is made out of plastic or polycarbonate, and a display that surprisingly has minimal bezels with an 88.2% screen to body ratio and a hole punch camera, of course. As for the stylus, it's nothing too fancy technologically speaking. It doesn't have its own cursor on the screen or battery life like the Galaxy Ultra devices, but it's made out of a premium all metal design and looks just as good as the rest of the phone, but we'll talk more about that stylus later. Now the display. On this surprisingly beautiful display, we have a OLED panel capable of a 120Hz refresh rate, and it shines with its 1200 nits peak brightness, which makes this display easy to see in direct sunlight and is a far cry from what we saw in the 2023 predecessor of the Moto G Stylus, which had a laughable 564 nits peak brightness, so more than 2 times brighter than last year's stylus wielding phone from Motorola. And that's not all that's changed. This year we finally get the luxury of an OLED panel, and I have to say the colors, the crispness, clarity of this display, super refreshing to see. Anything from watching videos to playing games is going to be a joy on this updated display. Again, great job Motorola. As for the speakers, we have a stereo speaker setup, so one speaker at the bottom of the phone and one in the headset. The speakers are loud and clear, and in my use I haven't really had too much tin. These speakers aren't anything too amazing or anything to write home about, but what is that we still have a headphone jack in 2024 for the audiophiles out there, something that is getting more rare as the years progress. Getting into the software on this phone, this is probably the biggest and really only con or downside to this phone, but we only have 1 year of OS updates, or really one OS update, so we're going to go from 14 to 15 in the lifespan of this phone. However, we do have 3 years of bi-monthly security patches, but I don't think it really makes up for the lack of OS updates, and especially in a world where we have phones like the Galaxy A35, a phone that's the same $399 price tag, that has 4 years of promised OS updates. So it sucks to see Motorola fall behind in this arena once again. I guess some things do stay the same, and it's unfortunate because this is some really decent hardware. For the battery, we have a 5,000 milliamp capacity with a capability of fast charging at 30 watts. There is no charger in the box, however, and we surprisingly have a 15 watt wireless charging rate as well, which is even faster than the $500 Pixel 8a that has half the wireless charging rate at 7.5 watts. And as for the battery life, I saw myself getting a solid 8 to 9 hours of screen on time, and for the average person with moderate use, I can see you lasting the full work or school day with absolutely no issue. Now let's talk about the stylus. As I said before, the stylus is located at the bottom right side of the phone, and all you have to do is press in for it to pop out, and boom, you have a beautiful all metal stylus that has a nice heft to it. Now as for the features that were met with upon popping it out, it really is nothing new. We have our notes, we have our handwriting calculator and live messages. However, I feel like for the majority of people, taking notes is what you primarily use it for. The handwriting calculator is super useful as well for the student out there, but all in all, this is nothing to write home about. Literally, it's a solid and accurate stylus and does what it's supposed those two, nothing really much more to say. Under the hood, this device sports a Snapdragon 6 Gen 1 processor with 8GB of RAM and 256GB of internal storage just off the rip. This surprisingly works well for day-to-day use and is decently optimized for this battery, so anything from your day-to-day tasks to casual gaming should be a breeze. And I'm also finding it pretty refreshing that we aren't getting all these hiccups and stutters previous devices had in this price bracket. I remember even from a few years ago using a $400 device, secured the slot to have some like stutters and some glitches and all that type of stuff. So I'm happy that we're not receiving too much more of that anymore. Good phones are getting cheap and cheap phones are getting good, and I think this is a positive shift in the culture of budget conscious phones. Honestly, it's really nice to see. As for my test with more graphic intensive games, PUBG and Call of Duty Mobile fared very well at high graphics and high frame rate settings, and surprisingly Genshin Impact looked pretty good as well at its medium graphical settings. However, when we turned up the frame rate to 60 frames per second, I did notice some heating near the camera module on the back of the phone that may cause some annoyance for the gamers out there. So it's probably best to have it on the lower settings for that one. But if you guys want to see more about the gaming, I do have a full review on the Moto G Stylus. I'll leave a link in the description down below for that. Lastly, the cameras. Now, there isn't anything too special about these cameras, and in all honesty, there are many phones in this price range that have better performance in video and photo, but for the people who don't really mind not having the greatest camera in the world or even the greatest camera in this price bracket, you can definitely get by with this. I mean, overall for the price tag, you can take some really stellar photos with decent depth, colors, and clarity that even surprise me, but when it comes to the video, it's really not that special. I found the stability to be acceptable for the price, but the Galaxy A35 and even the Pixel 6a have a better camera when it comes to that task. So is this phone really worth the $399 price it's asking? Honestly, I think it is. A lot of it has to do with not having any other option unless you want an older or used device, but if you're in the market for a device and it downright has to be one with the stylus, I can absolutely recommend this phone. It offers a great display, ample storage and RAM, a decent processor, and the beautiful box it's wrapped in. Yes, we only have one operating system update, but I really do believe the average person can squeeze a solid 3 years out of this device.